The Portuguese Empire is one of the richest and most powerful empires in history, able to project power across the oceans and keep a complicated network of trade running for hundreds of years. But where did this all start? Today, we'll be taking a look at the founding of Portugal. It's 718, and the Islamic Moors have conquered the majority of the Iberian Peninsula. It all began 7 years earlier when the Moors intervened in a Vandal civil war. All that remains now is a little kingdom in the north known as Asturias. The final conflict comes at the Battle of Covadonga. The Moors suffer a terrible defeat and retreat from Asturias forever. They would later suffer a similar defeat at the Battle of Toulouse, ending their expansion into Europe. For decades, Muslim Spain, also known as the Emirate of Cordoba, was a forerunner of scientific learning and religious tolerance. Although the kingdom was technically Muslim, many Christians and Jews lived there in peace. Many great artworks also emerged as the result of this Islamic Golden Age. In the year 785, the Kingdom of Francia invaded Cordoba, and the period known as the Reconquista began. Within 1 to 200 years, the kingdoms such as Navarre, Leon Castile, Barcelona, and Aragon had been established. In 1093, a knight named Henry was crowned the Count of Portugal. Portugal was an already autonomous kingdom at the time, but under Count Henry, the region truly came into its own. Count Henry's son, Alfonso Henrique, would crown himself the first king of Portugal after defeating his pro-Castilian mother in her attempt to reintegrate Portugal into Castile. He would go by the title of Alfonso I and would spend the rest of his life establishing the new kingdom's borders. The Roman city of Coimbra was established as the capital. Already a mix of Roman, Visigoth, and Arabic architecture, King Alfonso would add to the city by ordering the construction of many cathedrals, such as the Santa Cruz Monastery. Sitting on the Modego River, Coimbra became an important trade, religious, and military center for the region. Unfortunately, both the people and the army were quite skeptical of King Alfonso, so to prove himself, he would initiate many campaigns against the Almohad dynasty to the south. The people displayed such enthusiasm for this act that the next 8 kings of Portugal would continue these campaigns. After the death of the 9th king of Portugal, Fernando I, there was a brief national struggle for power. The Portuguese nobles would elect Count João I to become the next king of Portugal. He would spend the first 2 months of his reign raising an army and crushing the small opposition to his rule. The opposition was backed by Castile, who still saw Portugal as a rebellious state and not an actual country. Castile had backed pro-Castilian nobles for the monarchy, but after João's army defeated them, Castile decided to deal with Portugal once and for all. Castile, now the most powerful nation on the Iberian Peninsula, invaded Portugal in 1385. With news spreading across the country, people flocked to João's banner to form an army. Castile tried to siege the city of Lisbon early on in the war, but smaller Portuguese militias formed together to disrupt the Castilian supply. The defenders managed to hold Lisbon, and the Castilian army retreated in early September. King João took the opportunity to form an alliance with England as the Castilian king rebuilt his army. When the Castilian king heard of this, he was enraged and immediately re-invaded the country. The new Castilian army was estimated to have been over 30,000 men strong. João had dismissed the majority of his army after the last war, so he only had about 7,000 men left. With his smaller numbers, he knew he could never defend Lisbon, so he decided to meet the Castilians outside of a town named Aljubarrota. The Portuguese formed up on a hill outside of the town. This was a great defensive position for their smaller force. The Castilian army, however, decided to form up onto the south of the hill and try and outflank the Portuguese battlements which were set up on the north. But by the time they got there, João had not only managed to turn his entire army around, but also build new battlements on the south side. The initial charge of Castilian cavalry was severely diminished by the Portuguese archers and the ditches in front of the hill. Instead of calling them back, however, the Castilian king ordered the main part of his army to advance. João retreated the archers on the flanks and set up his rear guard to hold the line. The battle devolved into a desperate melee on both sides. However, the Castilians had it worse, as they were disorganized from charging through the ditches, and their order fell apart. The Portuguese held the line and even began to push back, slowly breaking the Castilian army. They managed to break through to the King's Guard and kill some of the bannermen, and with this, the Castilian army began to rout, as they thought with the banner falling, their king must be dead. João I took advantage of the slight lip-breaking concentration, and he began to overrun the Castilian lines. The Castilians retreated, completely breaking formation and running down the hill. Many were killed in the retreat, and the Castilians were estimated to have lost around 9,000 men. The Portuguese, however, lost less than 1,000, and with this Portuguese victory, they were finally free. Thank you for watching. Be sure to leave any suggestions for future videos in the comments section below. If you'd like to check my sources, they are listed in the description. Be sure to subscribe and check out my other videos if you have not done so, and thank you.